Okay, good morning. Welcome back. Week 4 of our 16-week format. Pretty straightforward week. We went over um, smart cities and what a literature review is previously. That paper is now coming due this week. The actual topic is more about IoT, the Internet of Things, and particularly in a manufacturing setting. There's a couple of articles that may be um, quite interesting if you haven't delved into this before. The connected factory, the idea of the connected factory, and all of the big data that not just the factory, but a manufacturing enterprise has to deal with. Okay, so we'll cover the two weekly objectives, which again have uh, nothing directly to do with this week's assignment. That was the material for that was last week. And yeah, so we'll move into those and then talk a little bit about smart manufacturing. It's not a one size fits all. Not every company employs every possible um, method that is available, but there are definitely approaches to manufacturing. Manufacturing 4.0, it's called sometimes. And then I want to be real specific about the week 4 writing assignment and make sure that everybody understands the detailed instructions and is following them. Okay, so yeah, our two objectives: how big data is used in manufacturing. So I got a graphic on it. We'll talk about it. I'm not in the manufacturing sphere, but I work with a lot of manufacturers, so I'm somewhat aware of what's going on inside our connected factories. And then the second objective, how the Internet of Things uses big data technology, which is just kind of a misnomer. I think a more plainly stated objective would be how the Internet of Things impacts the world of big data more as a source, um, maybe a display, but yeah, the Internet of Things isn't a thing. It isn't one thing. So I'm not really sure how to go about that. But like I said, we're not really discussing this other than in your paper, which the specific applications of big data analytics in a smart city. That's what you'll be you'll be reviewing in your literature review this week. But I don't think there's any way to narrow that topic down without going into subdomains. But we'll talk a little bit more about the Internet of Things. So here's our graphic about the smart city again. Remember, we're monitoring and potentially making decisions based on a multitude of sensors owned by different people. That's the other thing. This isn't all one, monolithic effort. This leverages like 4G and 5G connectivity so that the devices themselves can actually connect to the internet. That hence the Internet of Things. Anything connected to the internet potentially is a member of IoT. So you've got connected cars, connected buildings, weather monitoring cameras. You've got government and private data to manage within that city and make available. So there's a bullet on there for open data. Of course, health, big thing is connected security. So, where the police are, what the response time is, how far the nearest hospital is, which one makes sense. If one is handling, a mass casualty event, you need to move patient loads to another place, and a lot of that gets consolidated. That big data gets consolidated in a 911 communications center um, at the municipality level. So they got to know what's going on in a lot of different spheres. So yeah, you're hopefully you're finding at least, you know, three or four. There's many out there. Um, articles, uh, recent articles too. You know, try and find recent stuff that has examined big data in a connected city, and you'll go through and methodically review those articles. So yeah, and these are, you know, some of these sensors are government owned. People themselves and their mobile device are a huge source of data. Again, with the challenges of aggregating from different apps, different systems, and addressing the privacy concerns, because folks want to take advantage of data-driven governance and whatnot, but they don't want their own private data attributed to themselves. So there's a anonymization, non-attribution, aggregation um, that needs to be accomplished for in order for people to feel safe about it. I was watching recently a, a short bit on the news about connected watches and their ability to help the individual patient, because there's so much that they can tell about you from the motion and the heartbeat and respiration and whatnot. They can predict. One of them is it predicted with pretty good confidence COVID onset before you were symptomatic, by monitoring bodily functions, just what a smartwatch monitors. They were able to predict that folks had gotten COVID-19 before they even had a symptom. So, but the problem is that, like for Apple, say they're maybe the largest vendor of largest single vendor of fitness watches. I would think maybe Apple Watch and Fitbit. I've got a Garmin, but they're not major players. But there's a lot of vendors. But anyway, this was at Apple headquarters, and they absolutely came on record saying that data about that individual iWatch wearer was limited to the watch itself, and it was encrypted and not shared with Apple at all. So they're not uploading that data to Apple. Now there are third-party apps, absolutely, and I don't know that the iWatch paired to an iPhone might be a different story. So they were being very specific about their claims of privacy, because I know there are running apps and whatnot where you can share where you went on your run, and we were even having trouble over in the combat zones. You could tell where our soldiers went on their morning runs if you looked at social media at where they were sharing um, exercise details. So yeah, IoT and privacy, big deal. So there, that's this paper, and I'll go over the instructions and kind of what I'm looking for, how the paper should flow towards the end of the session here. So that's a smart city, but advanced manufacturing is a manufacturing enterprise, something that, that literally takes, raw materials and puts them through a process, automated and manual, and kicks out a physical product on the other end. So some of this, I mean, can be done small scale. Cottage industry manufacturing can be done with no automation whatsoever, but that's really more like almost like arts and crafts almost, compared to, no kidding, the scale of the manufacturing of something like, a Boeing commercial passenger jet, or even, a passenger car. consumer electronics, smart televisions, mobile phones, these things that are complex and kicked out. Uh, well, they're either, like an aircraft, they don't kick them out by the thousands, but they're very complex. A lot of subassemblies that have to be tracked back to the manufacturer in order to stay compliant with the FAA and their inspection regimen. And then you've got gigantic factories kicking out things like um, smartphones, even any consumer good. Um, it's just staggering the amount of consumer goods that we consume. Anyway, so this connected factory, think all the way uh, from the way technology affects design, and even before that, you can use social media and reviews and case studies and whatnot and that data will feed a a manufacturing enterprise's plans for future products, product growth, what enhancements to current products and all new product lines. So it starts early at conception, and the way they innovate a new product through to the way like CAD programs are used to design a part so that with 100% confidence when you knock out that first prototype, it's going to fit and function the way you intended, because of using software. And then in the actual manufacturing process, there's supply chain tracking and tracking of wastage and repetitions through the cycle that feed maintenance decisions, preventive maintenance to make sure things don't break down, and that raw materials are ordered as they're needed, and you don't have to stockpile too much because that costs a bunch of money to keep just material sitting in your warehouse in a nice climate controlled manufacturing environment, all the way through to testing, certification, like I said, the data for. I was in aircraft maintenance for a while. A lot of my friends still are, work at, like, say, Falcon Jet, Dassault Falcon Jet, here in Little Rock. They have a completion facility where they fly a empty, really, an empty corporate jet over from France that has no furniture. The cockpit is complete, so all the instrumentation and everything is there. So it's a flyable airframe, but all the amenities that you think of in a corporate jet, and the outer paint job, all of that is completed here in Little Rock. And the tracking, the data involved in where each piece and part of that aircraft came from, because it all has to be flight worthy. You can't just stick anything in an aircraft that's made for household use, because of the safety issues. Not just the people in the jet, but if an aircraft does have an accident, people on the ground are um, uh, at risk as well. So the tracking of everything that goes into the jet, and the planning, the project management, the phasing, because you can only do certain things at certain time, all of that now is software. Some of it's tracked in an enterprise resource planning ERP application. Sometimes they're kind of sort of individual. Like I said, there's no one size fits all solution to this, but those are the kind of things that researchers are looking through. Again, your paper this week's about smart cities. It's not about manufacturing. So this is just a interesting discussion. Um, an interesting thing for you to look up. And there's a link down at the bottom, where I got this graphic. So There you go. So I wanted to talk before we part ways here. I wanted to talk about the paper instructions, and make sure that um, you are attacking this the right way. Um, okay, this is straight from the university. So I'm noticing that they're accenting things I have seen before, and reported to the university. So I think they are um, taking taking account and accenting things in the instructions. Okay, so you're doing a literature review, which you covered in the second week. It's methodical overview. You're writing about someone else's writing, so it's important to focus on what they did, on what their project was, not just regurgitating facts about smart manufacturing, or I'm sorry, on smart cities. You're actually writing, as like a book report back in middle school. You're actually writing about those other articles, on smart cities and big data analytics. So a lot of folks like to use, um, I'm good on the next slide. I'll show you the topic areas like research question and methodology. They like to use those for their headers, but you can do it other ways too. You can group it by um, problems and gaps, and then go into those other things. So it's your story. It's your organization to choose. Just remember that uh, you're not collecting data. You are not collecting data. Don't write as about a study in so that it can be confused by the reader that you are the one that conducted the study. Um, that's a critical. So again, it goes back to, you can't use their words because they very often wrote it in the tone that that they conducted a research project, the authors of the articles that you're reviewing. So just keep that in mind. And specifically, here's our format: title page and table of contents. Your first section is the background, where you'll describe what a smart city is, and what, just in general, what separates a traditional unconnected city, and what defines a smart city. That yeah, I don't know that there are specific techniques and algorithms um, in this case, but you'll see these instructions are the same for every paper. So um, you need to write about them differently because they're different topics. Okay, so number 4, the research questions. That's where you go into an article, and the researcher will ask a question. It could be, what is the impact of smart city technology on the effectiveness of law enforcement, and then they examine that research question. Um, so these are specific. Sometimes they're quantitative, and they'll result in uh, actual hypotheses, like a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis. If you don't know what those are, um, perhaps do a little Google searching, so that you can so that just the basics of hypothesis testing, so that when you're reading those articles, it makes sense to you. But it could be a qualitative. What are people's impressions of privacy in a smart city environment or whatever. But examine the research questions. Um, and like I said, hopefully you've got 3 or 4 articles. So talk about the research questions from each of them. Now, if you get an article that doesn't ask a research question, and it's just information, it's just background information, and it's not really a research project, you might want to not use that one. Try and, use case studies, use articles that actually examined something, that didn't just write about uh, um, like a magazine article, like a traditional magazine article or a chapter of a textbook. And again, methodology, was it quantitative? Did they measure response times of, first responders before and after implementation of something? Did they measure traffic congestion levels before and after implementing a framework? What was the methodology? And remember, qualitative is kind of exploratory and tells a story, tells a word story of what's going on. Quantitative or absolute numerical measures. Did they survey people? Was it a case study of a particular city? All of these are research methodologies that that kind of stand apart, and that you'll need to know um, the definition of those different methodologies and how they're different from each other. If you haven't already had videos and whatnot on that, I think most of you that have been with the university for more than a couple of semesters have been able to take advantage of Dr. Brown's prep videos, even if you haven't had your methodology course yet. So yeah, we got list the research questions and then the methodology. And again, you're talking about 3 or 4 articles here. So they should flow in the same order. Talk about Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and Article 4 that you chose, kind of in that order. You know what I mean? When you're talking about research questions and methodology and data analysis, probably wouldn't hurt to have a short paragraph, 3, 4 sentences, maybe for each article in each section of research question methodology. One student I saw turned in a table where each article had the question, and then the how their description of how the article addressed that, or listed it, so that you could kind of tell article to article what was being discussed. That was one way um, to organize it so that it flowed well. And then their data analysis. What were their findings? Did it support accepting the null hypothesis or rejecting the null hypothesis? Was there were there things in a qualitative study that were brought to light, that where they found maybe needs for further research? So yeah, keep the same articles, but explore each one briefly, in the same order between this research questions methodology data analysis. Now you don't have to use research questions methodology data analysis and conclusions as your headers. You could organize it differently. Like I said, it's your if you're seeing like a current, like a theme of you want to examine things by their application, like traffic, security, environment, and then inside of that go into the research questions methodology and the data analysis. If that makes sense, these headers are yours. And of course, it's acceptable to just use them as they are stated here in this order. But make sure you're using headers so that it's followable. And remember, a header does not have a colon after it. So make sure you're using a quality APA7 template and guide. So that is the paper due this week. If you have any questions at all, remember to email me. And there is an art to writing and telling a story and choosing your words. It's your story, but remember, you got to focus on the requirements. The requirements are listed in the instructions. It says here, be sure to include the main research questions from all the literature you are reviewing. So if you mention an article and then never mention their research questions, what, you're not following the instructions. You got to follow the instructions, satisfy the instructions. I think ATQ is what I went over in week one with the academic writing for systems engineers. You got to make sure you're answering the question. All right. Any questions at all? Feel free to email me. Thank you.